Why did that teacher got fired from your school? I will never forget the day our teacher, Mr. Daniels, got fired right in the middle of class. It wasn't after school, it wasn't in the principal's office, it wasn't whispered about in the hallways, it happened right in front of us, with the door wide open and the entire class staring. He was shouting at the top of his lungs, his face red, his hands shaking, and the whole room frozen like statues. Then the principal walked in with 2 other teachers, and before I could even blink, she told him to pack his things and leave. The room went silent, so silent you could hear the ceiling fan buzzing. I sat there, gripping my pencil, wondering if this was some kind of prank. But it wasn't. They actually escorted him out, and the last thing he said before slamming the door was something so strange, it made my stomach twist. You'll all understand one day. And that's where everything started to unravel. But let me take you back, because you're probably wondering. Why would a teacher get fired in front of a whole class? At first, Mr. Daniels seemed like a normal teacher. He was the kind of man who wore the same wrinkled shirt twice a week, carried a briefcase that looked older than him, and always had chalk dust on his sleeves. He wasn't the funniest teacher, and he wasn't the strictest either. He was just there. The kind of teacher you don't really think about much. But things slowly started to feel off. One time, during roll call, he said a student's name wrong 3 times in a row. Not just a slip of the tongue, he called Jamie Jason, then Jacob, then James. When Jamie corrected him, Mr. Daniels just stared at her for a few seconds like he was lost, then laughed it off. The whole class chuckled too, but it felt weird. At first, we thought he was just forgetful. Everyone makes mistakes, right? But it kept happening. Sometimes he would forget what subject we were even studying. We'd be in math, and he'd start talking about history. Then came the temper. I remember the first real outburst. It was a Tuesday morning. Somebody, probably Chris, because Chris was always pulling dumb pranks, taped a picture of SpongeBob on the chalkboard. Mr. Daniels walked in, stared at it, and his whole face changed. He ripped it down so hard the tape peeled paint off the board. Then, instead of laughing it off, he started yelling. Do you think this is funny? Do you think I'm a joke to you? His voice was so loud, I could feel it in my chest. The class went dead quiet. Nobody laughed. Nobody even moved. That's when I realized something wasn't right with him. Teachers got annoyed all the time, sure, but this felt different. The weird part was, the next day, he came in acting like nothing happened. He even brought candy for the class, handing it out like he was Santa Claus. That was Mr. Daniels in a nutshell. One day he was fine, the next day he was scary. And people started talking. Rumors spread fast in our school. Some kids said he was going through a divorce. Others swore they saw him sleeping in his car in the parking lot. A few even whispered that he drank coffee from a flask, not a thermos. Nobody knew for sure, but we all knew something was off. Then came the journals. One morning, Mr. Daniels told us to take out a notebook. We're starting something new, he said, smiling a little too wide. From now on, you're going to write in these every day. Don't worry about grammar, don't worry about spelling, just write. Anything. Everything. Secrets, thoughts, dreams, fears. I want to know the real you. At first, we thought it was kind of cool. No homework, just writing whatever we wanted? Easy A. Some kids wrote about their crushes. Some doodled pictures. Some poured their hearts out. But then he started reading them out loud. Not the funny ones. Not the light ones. The personal ones. I'll never forget when he read Sarah's entry. She had written about how her parents were fighting a lot at home and how she was scared they might split up. Mr. Daniels stood at the front of the class, journal in hand, and read it word for word, his voice calm but his eyes watching us like he was studying our reactions. Sarah's face turned red. She begged him to stop, but he didn't. He just closed the notebook at the end and said, "See? Now we know each other better." He tore the notebook in half. The sound of ripping paper echoed through the room. Pages flew everywhere like confetti, drifting down on our desks, our laps, even the floor. Josh's private words, his fears, his secrets, they were scattered all over the room for everyone to see. Gasps filled the air. Sarah covered her mouth. Chris muttered holy crap under his breath. Nobody dared to move, though. We just sat there, eyes darting between the shredded pages and Mr. Daniels, who was standing at the front, breathing hard like he had just run a marathon. The principal's face went pale. "Mr. Daniels, that's enough," she said, her voice sharper now. But he ignored her. Instead, he bent down, scooped up one of the torn pages, and held it in the air like it was evidence. "Do you see this?" he shouted. "This is the truth. The real truth. You don't care about these kids. You care about grades, about tests, about numbers. But his voice cracked, I know them. I know who they are." It was terrifying. The assistant principal tried again. "Put it down, Mr. Daniels. Step outside." But he didn't. He slammed the page back onto Josh's desk and leaned in close. "Tell them," he hissed, "tell them what you wrote." Josh's eyes filled with tears. He shook his head. "Please, just stop." That was the moment everything exploded. The principal raised her voice, firmer than I'd ever heard it. Mr. Daniels, you are done here. You need to leave, now. And suddenly, the classroom wasn't just a classroom anymore. It felt like a battlefield. Mr. Daniels stood at the front like a soldier refusing to surrender, his hands clenched, his whole body shaking. The rest of us were trapped in our seats, waiting to see what he'd do next. Finally, after what felt like forever, he dropped the notebook. The pieces fluttered to the ground. And he laughed. Not a happy laugh. Not even a nervous laugh. A hollow, broken laugh that sent chills down my spine. You'll see, he muttered, his voice low now, almost to himself. One day you'll see I was right. The assistant principal stepped forward again, this time placing a hand on his shoulder. And this time, Mr. Daniels didn't resist. He let them guide him out of the room, his shoes scraping the floor as he shuffled to the door. Before he left, he turned back, his eyes sweeping over all of us. And then he said it, the same strange words from before, you'll all understand one day. The door shut behind him. For a moment, the room was silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then, all at once, the whispers started. What just happened? Is he gone for real? Are we safe? I sat there frozen, my hands gripping my desk so tight my knuckles hurt. I couldn't shake the image of Josh's journal pages scattered everywhere. I couldn't shake the look in Mr. Daniels' eyes, like he truly believed what he was doing was right. The principal cleared her throat, her voice calm but firm. Class is dismissed early today. Gather your things. We filed out quietly, no jokes, no laughter, just whispers that felt like they would never stop. I glanced back into the room one last time before leaving. Torn papers still covered the floor, like the aftermath of some storm. That night, the rumors exploded. Some kids swore he'd been taken out in handcuffs. Others claimed he'd been shouting in the office for hours. Someone even said he wasn't fired at all, just on leave. Nobody knew for sure, but everybody had a version of the story. For days, that was all anyone talked about. Teachers avoided the subject, brushing it off with lines like, "Don't worry about Mr. Daniels," or "Focus on your work." But how could we? It wasn't every day you saw a teacher self-destruct in front of you. The strangest part, though, came the following week. We got a substitute teacher, Miss White, who was as sweet as pie and did her best to calm us down. But on her first day, when she opened Mr. Daniels' desk, she froze. Then she quickly shut it, her face pale. Of course, we all noticed. And of course, we all wanted to know what was inside. At lunch, Chris whispered that he had peeked into the desk before Miss White locked it. He swore there were more notebooks inside. Dozens of them. Some with names of students who weren't even in our class. The thought made my stomach turn. Had Mr. Daniels been keeping journals on kids for years? And then, 2 days later, something happened that made everything worse. Josh didn't come to school. At first, we thought he was sick. But then it turned into 2 days. Then 3. Then a whole week. When he finally came back, he looked different. Quieter. Nervous. And he wouldn't talk about what happened. Every time someone asked, he just shook his head and changed the subject. That's when I realized, whatever Mr. Daniels had written, whatever he had forced out of us, it wasn't over. And the scariest part? I had written things too. Things I didn't want anyone to know. And I couldn't stop wondering, what if he still had them?